I am a 36-year-old man, married to my wife, Emily, who is 34. We have a 6-year-old daughter named Ava, who is the kind of kid that makes strangers smile when they walk past her in the grocery store. She has this wild curly hair, a laugh that sounds like someone shaking a jar of marbles, and a habit of running full speed into my arms the moment I get home. I love that little girl more than I have ever loved anything in my life. I come from a family where responsibility was not optional. My parents were good people, but we were broke in a way that felt like a constant heavy fog. If the fridge broke, I fixed it. If my dad's hours got cut, I picked up extra shifts. When I was 15, I was the kid mowing lawns before school and wiping down tables at a diner after school. So when I grew up, met Emily, got married, and eventually became a father, I carried that instinct with me. My one promise was that my wife and daughter would never feel the instability and stress that defined my childhood. Emily works in marketing for a medical company. It is not glamorous, but it pays well, and she has always been proud of her work. She likes being useful. She likes being needed. She likes being the person who saves the day. And for a long time, that was one of the things I loved most about her. Late last year, she started talking about a new coworker named Derek. She described him as the kind of man who always looks exhausted, always scrambling, always apologizing for something. She said he was a single father with 2 kids, ages 8 and 4, and that he had no support system. I barely reacted when she mentioned him, because people come and go in offices all the time. But that name stuck in the back of my mind like a splinter that did not hurt yet, but that I knew was there. At first, it was nothing concerning. She would say she stayed an extra half hour to help him finish a report, or she would explain that his babysitter bailed and she watched his kids for just an hour until his ex-wife could pick them up. I felt uneasy, but I did not want to become that husband. The insecure one, the controlling one. And besides, Emily has always been the kind of person who will drop everything to help someone else. It is one of the reasons I fell for her. I trusted her. So I let it go. But then 1 hour became 3. 3 became entire evenings. I would get a text at 5 o'clock that said something like, "We have a last-minute presentation tomorrow. I have to help Derek prep. I am so sorry. I will be home as soon as I can." Then she would walk through the door at 10 o'clock, smelling like her special perfume, the one she only uses when she wants to make a good impression at work or at big events. Meanwhile, I would be sitting at the dining table helping Ava glue macaroni to construction paper while she asked me, "Is Mommy coming home before bedtime?" I would tell her that Mommy was working hard to help people, and she would nod with this sad little smile, like she was pretending to understand so I would not feel worse. I did not want to punish Emily for being helpful. I did not want to start fights. I did not want to accuse her of anything I did not have proof of. But I could feel myself becoming resentful, and that resentment terrified me. It felt like the early stages of something that destroys marriages slowly and quietly. Then the money started acting strange. I handle our finances. I always have. Emily does not enjoy dealing with budgets or numbers, and I do not mind it. I am meticulous with it. I know when every bill gets paid and where every dollar goes. So when I saw a $40 difference one week and a $60 difference another week, I noticed. At first, I thought I made a mistake. Then I saw a $112 charge at Target. I asked her what it was, and she told me it was snacks for a team meeting. The next week, there was a $75 charge at a children's boutique I had never heard her mention, and she said it was for gifts for a colleague's kids. I laughed and said in the most casual voice I could manage that I did not know she was so invested in people I had never met. She laughed it off like it was nothing. But Ava stopped laughing. She would look at the door every time she heard a car outside and ask me if Mommy was home. She asked me one night while holding her stuffed rabbit if I could play dress up with her the way Mommy used to. And when I said of course I could, she said in the softest voice, "It is not the same." That cracked something open inside me. I had stepped into this role of being both parents without resentment toward my daughter, but with this deep gnawing ache that my wife seemed invisible in her own home. Weeks passed. Emily kept working late, kept running errands that made no sense, kept buying things I had never heard about, kept mentioning Derek less and less, almost like she realized she should not be bringing him up anymore. My instincts screamed at me to pay attention. I felt like I was watching someone else's life happen from the outside, while mine fell apart quietly. Then came the night everything shifted. It was a Tuesday. I know that because Tuesday is pasta night, and I remember Ava sitting at the table absent-mindedly twirling noodles while staring at the empty seat where her mother should have been. Emily texted me at 4:58 in the afternoon, saying she had to run through a proposal with Derek and might be late. She came home at 9:47. I had already bathed Ava, read her 2 stories, tucked her in, packed her lunch, and cleaned the kitchen. Emily walked in looking drained, with her hair pulled back in the messy bun she only wears when she has been rushing around all day. I told her we really needed to talk. I kept my voice calm because I did not want her to shut down or get defensive. I told her that I understood she wanted to help a coworker, but it was hurting our family. I told her that our daughter was starting to feel it, and that I was feeling like I had become a single parent overnight. I told her I did not even know who this coworker was really or who his children were, and that I wanted to understand why his life seemed to be taking priority over our own. She did not get angry. She did not roll her eyes or sigh or tell me I was being dramatic. She froze exactly like someone who had just been caught doing something they never expected anyone to notice. Her face went pale, her eyes wide. She whispered, almost too quietly to hear, asking how I knew that Derek had kids. I said she told me. I said she mentioned his situation multiple times over the past few months. She stared at me like I had just spoken in a language she did not understand. Then she said with complete certainty that she had never told me any of that. And that was when something inside me dropped. Because either she was lying to my face or she genuinely did not remember the story she told me. Either way, something was very, very wrong. I did what every anxious husband does at 3 in the morning when his wife is hiding parts of her life. I started looking closer. The house was quiet in that strange, heavy way that only happens after a fight. Ava was asleep in her room, clutching her stuffed rabbit, still dried tears on her face from asking why her mother did not want to tuck her in anymore. Emily was asleep beside me, breathing evenly, almost peacefully, like she had not dropped a bomb on our family a few hours earlier by acting like she did not remember telling me anything about Derek's kids. I laid there staring at the ceiling, feeling something twisting hard in my chest. Something had to give. Her work laptop was sitting on the kitchen counter, closed and locked. That crossed a line I could not bring myself to cross. But her phone was face up on the nightstand, screen lit, unlocked because she must have fallen asleep scrolling. I hesitated for a long moment because I had never snooped a day in our marriage. I never wanted to be the man caught digging for problems. But when you watch your daughter cry herself to sleep over a parent who is choosing to be absent, you start caring less about pride. The messages between her and Dad Derek began months back. At first I saw quick questions about deadlines, a few short reminders about meetings, and the occasional harmless emoji. Normal workplace chatter, but then the tone shifted. I noticed the late-night timestamps and paragraphs full of personal venting. Jokes about their day that clearly no one else at the office was included in. Compliments that strayed from professional. Lines that blurred too gradually for her to pretend not to notice. It stopped looking like a coworker dynamic and started looking like two people building an emotional world outside of their real lives. Then I hit the part that knocked the wind out of me. Photos. Dozens. Photos of Derek's kids, his children in pajamas holding cereal bowls, his children on playgrounds posing like superheroes, his children sitting in his office coloring on printer paper. Every reply from Emily was full of reassurance. She wrote things like, "You are doing great and I can swing by after work, and I will bring dinner again tomorrow." The again is what struck me. It meant this had been going on for a while. It meant she had been feeding another man's family while our daughter asked why her mother did not come home in time to read her a bedtime story. I kept scrolling because I needed to understand the full picture. Then I saw the Venmo transactions. Payments from her to him. $150, $200, $340 with the note, groceries, and sitter. My stomach turned because this was not just emotional involvement. This was financial entanglement. This was investing in someone else's household. This was taking from ours without even telling me. I felt myself sink into the chair, staring at the screen while my entire understanding of our marriage unraveled. I sat there until the sunlight began to creep through the blinds. When Emily finally stirred awake, I felt something inside me harden because I knew I could not stay silent. I told her I saw the messages. Her entire face changed in an instant. Not anger, not even exactly shock, but something like panic, mixed with guilt. She told me that Derek was going through a bitter divorce, that he was struggling, that he was depressed, and that she had been trying to support him through it because he had no one else. She insisted she did not tell me because she did not want to burden me with more stress, as if hiding an entire parallel emotional life was somehow less stressful than telling the truth. What hit me the hardest was the way she said she felt needed. That word carried a softness I had not heard directed toward me in months. It sounded like she had been chasing that feeling, chasing the validation she got from stepping into someone else's crisis, instead of dealing with the slow cracks forming in our own home. I told her what she was doing was not helping anyone. I told her she was not supporting another family. She was replacing her own. I told her that I had been holding our lives together alone while she poured herself into a man and children who were not ours. Her entire body tensed and she snapped into defensive mode so fast it felt rehearsed. She claimed I was overreacting, that nothing physical happened, that she was allowed to care about people and that she was only doing what any compassionate person would do. I told her she was not allowed to abandon her own daughter in the process. She did not respond. She grabbed her coat, her keys, and walked out the front door before I could say anything else. No apology, no explanation, just gone. The day after she walked out, a strange sense of numbness settled over everything. I went through the motions of getting Ava ready for school, making her breakfast, tying her shoes, all while feeling like my own life was shrinking into something I barely recognized. I kept waiting for Emily to text or call or at least send some explanation for the night before, but my phone stayed silent. It was like she had turned invisible the moment the front door closed behind her. By noon, I was trying to keep myself focused at work when my phone rang with a number I did not recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to answer. The person on the other end introduced herself as someone from Emily's Human Resources Department. For a split second, my heart dropped, thinking Emily quit her job or collapsed at work or something had happened to her. But the representative asked in an even, professional voice if I could come in to discuss an ongoing matter involving my wife. That phrase felt like someone dropping a stone straight into my stomach. I arrived at the building with my pulse pounding in my ears. The representative led me into a conference room that felt too bright and too quiet. The kind of room where bad news always seems to settle before anyone even speaks. She explained that Emily and Derek had been the subject of an internal complaint. At first, I assumed another coworker said something about their late nights or blurred boundaries. But the representative continued, telling me the complaint was filed by Derek's ex-wife. I felt the world tilt when she stated that the ex-wife accused Emily of overstepping boundaries with their children and inserting herself inappropriately into their custody arrangement. I sat there trying to process the idea that a woman I had never met felt the need to report my wife to her employer for involving herself too deeply with her children. I could feel my face heating up with a mix of humiliation, anger, disbelief, and dread. The representative asked if I had any information that could help clarify the situation. I told her everything. The late nights, the missing money, the excuses, the perfume, the photos I found. The dinners she claimed she was cooking for another man's kids. The way our daughter had been crying because she felt forgotten in her own home. I even told her about the moment Emily looked shocked that I knew Derek had children, as if she did not remember ever telling me. The representative listened carefully, taking notes, and then said something that made my chest tighten. She told me these details aligned with other information they had gathered. That phrasing implied there was more to the story than even I knew. More concerns, more inconsistencies, more red flags. I left the building shaking, gripping the steering wheel in the parking lot while trying to process the fact that this situation had grown far beyond marital tension. It now lived in corporate offices, email threads, and formal investigations. When I finally pulled into our driveway, I saw Emily's car. For a moment, I paused before going inside, bracing myself. When I opened the door, I found her sitting on the couch with her face buried in her hands. She was sobbing in a way I had never witnessed before, the kind of sobbing that makes the whole body shake. She looked up at me with eyes swollen and red. She told me she had been pulled into a meeting with human resources, taken off a major project she had been working toward all year, and questioned extensively about her involvement with Derek and his children. She said Derek had been moved to another department pending an investigation. Then she took a shaking breath and told me something that turned the whole situation on its head. She claimed Derek had not been honest with her. She said he had painted his ex-wife as unstable, vindictive, and unreasonable. She said he implied he had no support, no help, no one else to rely on, and that she felt compelled to step in because she believed he was genuinely struggling to keep his family afloat. According to her, she had been manipulated into feeling indispensable. She insisted she did not have feelings for him. She insisted it was not romantic. She insisted she just got caught up in feeling important, valued, admired, seen in a way she said she had not felt at home. That line hit harder than any accusation or betrayal. Hearing that she missed feeling valued at home felt like someone twisting a knife. I kept thinking about the nights I made dinner alone, the school pickups, the laundry, the bedtime stories, the way I tried to keep everything running so she could rest or focus on work. And yet she claimed she felt appreciated elsewhere, not in the home I was breaking myself to keep together. I asked her if she wanted to repair our marriage or keep chasing that feeling she had been getting from Derek's chaos-filled life. She stared at the floor for a long time, silent, tears streaming down her face. Then she whispered that she did not know. Not yes, not no, just didn't know. I will admit it, I snapped. Not in the dramatic movie way where someone screams or throws things. I snapped in the quiet, calculated way a man snaps after months of being chipped away piece by piece until something inside finally gives. It was not violence or rage. It was a cold, surgical precision I did not know I had, because for most of my life I have been the calm one, the steady one, the fixer who swallows disappointment and turns it into motivation. But this time, I was done being the silent backbone of a family while watching my wife pour her emotional energy into someone else's chaos. I was done being the man holding everything together while everyone around me acted like stability was something that would magically regenerate, no matter how often they chipped at it. I was done waiting for clarity that never came. So I made a plan, not to destroy her, not to humiliate her, but to force the truth into the light, whether she was ready for it or not. The first step was sending the necessary evidence to the human resources representative. Not everything, not the deeply personal messages, not the emotional parts that would make her look pathetic or foolish. I sent only the pieces that mattered. Screenshots of the transactions showing she covered Derek's groceries, his babysitter, dinners she brought to his house, and the nights she watched his kids. Just facts. Clean, undeniable facts that directly contradicted her claim that she had simply offered emotional support. I attached a short note explaining that these receipts represented actions she had omitted in her conversation with human resources. I felt strangely calm hitting send. The second step was reaching out to Derek's ex-wife. I found her profile on Facebook after a bit of searching. Instead of accusing anyone, I sent a simple factual message identifying myself as Ava's father and explaining that I had learned Emily had been financially supporting Derek behind my back. I clarified that I had no issue with her children and no intention of escalating anything. I just believed she deserved transparency about the pattern of behavior she had already raised concerns about. I did not insult Emily. I did not lash out. It was the most restrained message I have ever written. Her reply arrived within minutes. Thank you. This helps more than you know. That one sentence told me everything I needed to know about the scale of the situation. It told me Emily had not just misled me, she had been misled too. It told me Derek had spun a web much wider than just my marriage. It told me the truth had been twisting in a corner, waiting for someone to finally pull it into daylight. Within a week, the fallout hit like a controlled demolition. Derek was terminated. Human resources found a pattern of manipulation, inappropriate borrowing of money from coworkers, boundary violations, and repeated incidents of bringing his children into the office against policy. They found out he had involved multiple colleagues in his custody fight and had leaned heavily on anyone he sensed was empathetic enough to fall for his narrative. Emily received a formal reprimand, was placed on a behavioral improvement plan, and temporarily removed from several ongoing projects. But the real consequences happened at home. For the first time since this nightmare began, Emily stopped running and finally told the truth. She admitted she had not been having a physical affair, but she had emotionally invested in someone else's crisis because it made her feel heroic, admired, and appreciated. She said that motherhood made her feel lost, like she had disappeared into routines and responsibilities she did not feel prepared for. She said Derek made her feel essential in a way she claimed she no longer felt in her own home. And that confession burned more than anything else. Not because she said she felt overlooked, but because she turned to someone outside our marriage rather than speaking to me, the man who had spent years building the life she said she wanted. I told her calmly that feeling lost does not justify abandoning your child. I told her that being admired by a man sinking in his own drama is not a replacement for showing up for the family she promised to build with me. I told her that while she was busy playing savior to someone else's children, I was at home comforting the daughter she was supposed to raise with me. She collapsed into tears again, but this time something in me stayed steady. We separated shortly after. Not divorced yet, but separated in the clear, physical way that leaves no room for blurred lines. She moved in with her sister. I stayed in the house with Ava. The judge agreed Ava should stay with me full-time until Emily could demonstrate consistency, stability, and emotional presence. I never weaponized Ava against her. I never used her as leverage. I told Emily she could visit whenever she genuinely wanted to be present. And ironically, her visits are now more frequent and more intentional than they were before everything fell apart. Sometimes life punishes without malice. Sometimes it just exposes the truth in the harshest possible light. As for revenge, people think revenge means destruction. Mine was not about that. Mine was about clarity. It was about pulling the curtain back so Emily could not hide behind stories or excuses or selective truths anymore. It was about ending the manipulation from Derek at its root. It was about making sure Ava did not keep crying over a mother who was unknowingly dragged into another man's gravity while her own family drifted away. In the end, the truth did what I could not. It forced everyone to confront reality. It shut down the fantasy Emily had stepped into. It stopped Derek from weaponizing sympathy. And it made me reevaluate what marriage means when one person forgets the weight of the vows they made. AITA? Perhaps to Emily, but not to Ava, and she is the only one whose opinion actually matters.